Imagine for a moment the quiet strength it takes to bleed for days and still rise. Imagine a process so delicate and intricate that it requires a perfectly choreographed dance of hormones, tissues, and timing, every single month, without applause, without celebration, and often without understanding. This is not a malfunction. This is not an inconvenience. This is biology at its most beautiful, most raw, and most intelligent. And yet, it's hidden, whispered about, stigmatized, even feared. We ask why women have periods as if it were some mysterious curse, instead of what it truly is, one of the most essential processes that allows humanity to exist in the first place. From the moment a girl enters puberty, her body begins to communicate with her in a language of cycles. This language is precise. It doesn't shout, it pulses, it prepares, it resets. The first drop of blood is not just a marker of womanhood, but the start of a lifelong journey with her own biology, a sign that her body is stepping into its power, into its rhythm. And every month thereafter, it speaks again. Not with words, but with the shedding of what wasn't needed, with the renewal of what could be, with the preparation for potential life. But let's be honest, society hasn't always honored this. In fact, more often than not, it's been met with silence, shame, and misunderstanding. We were told to hide it, to pretend it wasn't happening, to push through the pain, to never talk about it in public. Entire generations were taught that this essential process was dirty or impure, when in truth, it is a cleansing, a recalibration, a vital cycle that keeps the body in harmony with itself. What if we told you that having a period isn't a sign of weakness? It's a sign that the body is working exactly as it should, that the bleeding we try to hide is actually the body's way of renewing itself, month after month with mathematical precision and biological grace, because that's what it is. Every drop of menstrual blood is proof that the body prepared a place for life, and when life didn't arrive, it gently let go of what was no longer needed and began the process all over again. This isn't just biology. It's resilience. It's adaptability. It's silent strength in motion. Think about this. We celebrate birth and we mourn death. But we rarely speak of the process in between, the preparation, the potential, the waiting, the letting go. That's what a period is. It is the body's monthly meditation on life. And it does it quietly, with pain sometimes, with fatigue often, with emotional waves, and with astonishing regularity. How miraculous is it that the body can do all of that and still go to work, still study, still carry on with life as if it weren't also performing a sacred biological function in the background? And yet, we are taught to apologize for it, to mask it, to keep it hidden. But why should we hide something that is so foundational to life? Why should the very process that makes birth possible be shrouded in discomfort? It's time to shift the perspective. It's time to look at menstruation not as an inconvenience, but as a sign of strength, of functionality, of an ancient rhythm that has flowed through the bodies of billions of women before us, and will continue for generations to come. This monthly process is a dance of hormones, of organs, of time itself. The ovaries release an egg, the uterus prepares a home, and if that home isn't needed, it's taken down brick by brick and rebuilt again. Each step, each surge of hormone, each cramp, each emotional wave is part of a cycle that's been perfected by evolution. The fact that it happens without conscious thought, without the need to plan or command it, is nothing short of astonishing. And still, it happens, in silence, often without recognition or gratitude. It's also a cycle that doesn't get enough empathy. Menstrual pain is real. Mood swings are real. Fatigue, bloating, cravings, they are all real. But for too long, society has brushed them off, minimized them, joked about them. We would never tell someone recovering from surgery to just get over it. And yet, menstruating individuals are expected to show up, smile, and suppress everything they're feeling. That's not just unfair, it's ignorant of what the body is going through. The truth is, menstruation is not just about reproduction. It's about health. It's a vital sign, like heart rate or blood pressure. It tells us how the body is functioning. When the cycle is disrupted, it's often a clue that something deeper is going on. Stress, illness, nutritional deficiency, or hormonal imbalance. So to understand why women have periods is to understand the body's deeper wisdom. It is to listen to what the body is saying, not just once, but every single month. So the next time someone asks, why do women have periods? Don't whisper. Don't look away. Tell them the truth. Tell them it's because the body is capable of creating life. Tell them it's because the uterus is a place of preparation and possibility. Tell them it's a cycle of renewal, of power, and of health. Tell them it's not shameful, it's sacred. Tell them it's not weakness, it's wisdom. 1. The menstrual cycle is a reproductive clockwork. The human body, in all its complexity, operates through systems that often go unnoticed. Automatic, rhythmic, and incredibly precise. Among these systems, one stands out not only for its biological significance, but also for its intimate relationship with life itself, the menstrual cycle. To ask why women have periods is to open the door into understanding this cycle, a repeating series of hormonal and physical changes designed to prepare the body for the possibility of creating new life. And at the heart of it lies an internal clockwork, the menstrual cycle, ticking quietly yet powerfully, month after month. The menstrual cycle isn't just about the days when bleeding happens. That's only the most visible part. The real story begins deep within, in a communication network between the brain, the ovaries, and the uterus. An axis known as the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. This system operates like a biological orchestra. The hypothalamus sends signals to the pituitary gland. The pituitary responds by releasing hormones like FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone, and LH, luteinizing hormone. These hormones travel through the bloodstream to the ovaries, signaling them to mature an egg and prepare it for release. All of this happens before a single drop of blood is shed. All of it happens silently, behind the scenes. The cycle is measured from the first day of one period to the first day of the next, typically lasting around 28 days, though it can vary between 21 to 35 days in healthy individuals. During these days, the body is not idle. It is working, preparing, transitioning through distinct phases: the menstrual phase, the follicular phase, ovulation, and the luteal phase. Each of these stages plays a critical role in maintaining the reproductive system, even when pregnancy is not the goal. Let's begin with the menstrual phase. This is what most people think of when they hear the word period. It is the shedding of the uterine lining, a release of what the body had prepared but no longer needs. Blood, tissue, and mucus leave the body through the vagina over a period of 3 to 7 days on average. But this phase is not a failure. It's not the body's way of saying something went wrong. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's the system resetting, cleaning out the old to make way for the new. The endometrial lining, thickened in the previous cycle to receive a potential embryo, is now discarded with precision and grace. Next comes the follicular phase, which overlaps with menstruation in the early days. During this time, FSH levels rise, stimulating several follicles in the ovaries to grow. Each follicle contains an immature egg, but usually only one becomes dominant. This dominant follicle continues to mature, and as it grows, it produces increasing amounts of estrogen. Estrogen is the hormone responsible for thickening the uterine lining again, this time preparing a new, soft bed of tissue that could receive and nourish a fertilized egg. This is not random activity. This is timed preparation, guided by the brain's signals and the body's responses. Then comes ovulation, the centerpiece of the cycle. Midway through the month, a surge of luteinizing hormone causes the dominant follicle to burst, releasing the egg from the ovary. This egg is gently swept into the fallopian tube, where it will wait for about 12 to 24 hours for possible fertilization. It is during this short window that conception can occur. The body, however, doesn't know whether the egg will meet sperm. It simply follows the blueprint. It continues preparing, just in case. If fertilization does not happen, the cycle moves into the luteal phase. The ruptured follicle transforms into a temporary hormone-producing structure called the corpus luteum. It secretes progesterone, which stabilizes the uterine lining and prepares it for a potential embryo. Progesterone also causes subtle changes in the body, a rise in body temperature, shifts in mood, and sometimes even cravings or breast tenderness. These are not random symptoms. They are signs of the body working in sync, maintaining the environment for life. But if no implantation occurs, if the egg remains unfertilized, the corpus luteum begins to shrink and die. Progesterone levels drop. Without hormonal support, the thickened uterine lining is no longer sustainable, and so it begins to break down. Blood vessels constrict, tissues degenerate, and eventually the shedding begins, ushering in another menstrual phase. The cycle resets. The body begins again. This entire process is not just about reproduction. It is about balance. It reflects the harmony between organs, glands, and hormones. It's a sign of health, of functionality. A regular menstrual cycle indicates that the reproductive system is working as intended, that the body is maintaining its hormonal rhythms with precision. And when that rhythm is disrupted, when cycles become irregular, too long, too short, too painful, it is often the body's way of signaling that something deeper may be off. It may point to stress, thyroid issues, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or other health conditions that require attention. So when we speak of the menstrual cycle as a reproductive clockwork, we are recognizing its intelligence. We are acknowledging that this is not just some monthly inconvenience. It is a system designed by nature to preserve the possibility of life. Every signal, every hormone, every cell involved is doing its job to keep the cycle going, quietly, flawlessly, and tirelessly. And while it may not always feel like a gift, it is, because without it, life would not continue. Without it, the womb would never prepare, the egg would never meet the sperm, and the miracle of birth would never follow. This clockwork is not only a symbol of reproductive capacity, it is also a mirror of the body's internal well-being. When the system is balanced, it ticks on with regularity. When the system is under strain, it falters. That's why menstrual health is more than just a women's issue. It's a human issue. Understanding the cycle helps us understand the whole body, and in doing so, we open the door to more compassion, more awareness, and more support for those who go through this clockwork month after month. To ignore it is to miss one of the most profound displays of biological intelligence. To understand it is to appreciate the quiet work the body does to keep life possible, not once, but again and again in cycles as ancient and sacred as time itself. Taboo. The uterus prepares a home every month. Every month, like clockwork, a quiet miracle unfolds inside the human body. The uterus begins to prepare a home. Not a home of bricks and walls, but a soft, warm, nutrient-rich sanctuary made entirely from living tissue and guided by an ancient biological blueprint. This home is not built in vain. It is a sacred space created with care, in case a fertilized egg arrives to begin the process of life. And if no guest comes to stay, the body gently takes the home apart and begins again. This cycle, repeated thousands of times over a lifetime, is a story of preparation, patience, and renewal. It's also a powerful reminder that the body is always ready to welcome life, even when life doesn't arrive. The uterus, a muscular, hollow organ located in the pelvis, is often thought of simply as a place where babies grow. But even before pregnancy is on the table, the uterus is far from inactive. It is one of the most dynamic organs in the body, constantly changing, adapting, and responding to hormonal signals. Each month, as part of the menstrual cycle, the uterus undergoes a transformation, a biological construction project that prepares it for the possibility of implantation. This preparation is known as the thickening of the endometrium, the inner lining of the uterus. The process begins during the follicular phase of the menstrual cycle, after menstruation ends. As estrogen levels rise in response to signals from the growing follicles in the ovaries, the endometrial lining starts to regenerate. Like a gardener tending to soil, the body nourishes the uterine walls with new blood vessels, tissue, and cellular structures that can support a fertilized egg. This lining becomes rich with nutrients, glucose, glycogen, lipids, and proteins, all designed to sustain early life should conception occur. This preparation is not rushed. It unfolds over days, following a rhythm perfected by nature. The endometrium thickens gradually, becoming more receptive to a potential embryo. Microscopic structures called pinnopodes even begin to appear on the uterine surface. They are believed to play a key role in embryo attachment. The entire process is so refined, so deliberate, that it depends on the precise timing of hormones. Too much estrogen, and the lining may overgrow. Too little, and it may be too thin. Balance is everything. As ovulation approaches, the body shifts its focus. Progesterone, produced by the corpus luteum after ovulation, takes the lead. It signals the endometrium to stop growing and begin maturing. This phase is called the secretory phase of the cycle. The cells of the endometrial lining start to secrete nourishing fluids. Spiral arteries develop deeper into the lining, preparing to provide oxygen and nutrients to a possible embryo. The uterus, in this state, becomes a welcoming environment, warm, cushioned, and supportive. It's not just a structure, it's a living invitation. All of this silent, intricate transformation, happens without conscious thought. There is no need to command it or control it. The body simply knows what to do. It prepares, even if the person experiencing it is unaware of the effort. That's the quiet power of this process. It doesn't demand recognition. It simply prepares a home, again and again, with unshakable faith that one day it may be needed. But what happens when no fertilized egg arrives? What happens when there is no pregnancy? The body, always wise, begins another transformation, this time to let go. Without the sustained presence of progesterone, the spiral arteries begin to constrict. Blood flow to the lining decreases. The cells in the endometrium, now deprived of oxygen and nutrients, begin to break down. This breakdown triggers the release of chemical messengers that initiate the shedding process. And so menstruation begins, not as a failure, but as a gentle reset. The body dismantles the home it built with grace. It allows the old lining to exit the body as menstrual blood, clearing the way for a new beginning. The uterus does not mourn the loss. It does not hesitate. It prepares again, rebuilding, renewing, restoring. This is not a sign of weakness or waste. It is the ultimate expression of resilience. It's the body's way of saying, not this time, but maybe next. And so the cycle continues. The preparation of the uterus is also symbolic. It mirrors the emotional and spiritual process of creating space in our lives, building, hoping, letting go, and beginning again. It teaches us the value of preparation, even when outcomes are uncertain. It reminds us that sometimes the act of readiness itself is worthy, even if it goes unnoticed. In a world obsessed with results, the uterus shows us the quiet dignity of preparing with intention, not because success is guaranteed, but because the potential for life deserves nothing less. On a medical level, the state of the uterine lining can reveal a great deal about a person's reproductive health. A thin lining may indicate hormonal imbalances, chronic stress, or underlying conditions. A lining that doesn't shed properly can result in irregular periods or complications. Monitoring the health of the endometrium is critical in fertility treatments, hormone therapy, and gynecological care. It's not just a biological stage, it's a diagnostic tool, a mirror into deeper systems of balance. But for many, the effort the uterus makes each month is invisible. It happens beneath the surface, without praise, often accompanied by discomfort, cramps, and fatigue. And yet, the body continues, building that home, one cell at a time, one layer at a time, with the kind of faith that borders on devotion. It's a testament to the intelligence of the human body, to its capacity for creation and renewal, and to its unwavering commitment to life. So when we speak about why women have periods, we cannot ignore this extraordinary act of preparation. Every month, the uterus does not wait passively. It acts, it builds, it hopes, it releases, and it starts again. This cycle, often taken for granted, is one of nature's finest blueprints for readiness. It shows us that preparation is never wasted, that even when the outcome is uncertain, the act of making space for possibility is, in itself, an act of profound strength. Task 3. Ovulation, the central event. In the symphony of the menstrual cycle, there is a moment that stands out like the crescendo in a beautiful composition: ovulation. It is the central event around which everything else revolves. The shedding of blood during menstruation, the buildup of the uterine lining, the rise and fall of hormones. All of it is carefully orchestrated for this single pivotal act, the release of an egg. Ovulation is not loud. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or sound alarms. Yet biologically, it's one of the most critical processes the human body performs. Without ovulation, there can be no natural conception. Without ovulation, the purpose of the menstrual cycle itself would be incomplete, and it all begins with a signal from the brain. Every menstrual cycle starts in the brain, specifically the hypothalamus. It sends a chemical message called gonadotropin-releasing hormone, GnRH, to the pituitary gland. In response, the pituitary releases follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, which tells the ovaries to begin developing follicles. These follicles are tiny fluid-filled sacs, and inside each one lies an immature egg. As the days progress, one follicle becomes dominant. It grows larger, stronger, and more hormonally active than the rest. This dominant follicle is the body's chosen vessel, the one most likely to carry out the cycle's sacred mission. Around the middle of the menstrual cycle, typically day 14 in a 28-day cycle, the dominant follicle reaches maturity. Its rising estrogen levels signal the brain to unleash a powerful surge of luteinizing hormone, LH. This LH surge is the biological green light. Within 24 to 36 hours, the mature follicle swells, moves to the surface of the ovary, and ruptures. Out comes the egg, released into the fallopian tube, where it begins its short journey. This is ovulation, quiet, quick, and yet full of possibility. The egg that emerges during ovulation is not large, only about the size of a grain of sand, but it carries the full potential of new life. It is swept up by the fimbriae, finger-like projections at the end of the fallopian tube, and begins its passage toward the uterus. For the next 12 to 24 hours, it waits, ready to meet a sperm cell. This tiny window is the only time during the cycle that pregnancy can naturally occur. If sperm are present and reach the egg in time, fertilization may happen. If not, the egg will dissolve, absorbed harmlessly by the body. But regardless of whether it is fertilized, the body continues its cycle because it doesn't act on hope or emotion. It follows rhythm and biology. Ovulation does more than just release an egg. It triggers a hormonal transformation in the body. After the follicle bursts and releases the egg, it doesn't simply vanish. Instead, it transforms into the corpus luteum, a temporary endocrine structure that begins to secrete progesterone. This hormone is vital for maintaining the endometrial lining, which has been carefully thickened in preparation for a fertilized egg. Progesterone stabilizes the environment of the uterus, making it ideal for implantation. It also affects the entire body, increasing basal body temperature, influencing mood, and even impacting appetite and energy levels. Some people feel ovulation physically. It may manifest as a sharp twinge or mild cramp on one side of the lower abdomen, a sensation known as Mittelschmerz, a German word that literally means middle pain. Others may notice a change in cervical mucus, which becomes clear, stretchy, and slippery, resembling raw egg whites. This change is nature's way of creating an optimal environment for sperm to swim and survive. The body is not passive in this process. It actively prepares, adapts, and invites. Ovulation is also a sign of overall reproductive health. A regular ovulation pattern suggests that the hormonal systems of the body are in sync. Conversely, irregular or absent ovulation can indicate underlying issues, such as polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, thyroid imbalances, excessive stress, or malnutrition. That's why tracking ovulation is such a powerful tool for those trying to conceive, and for those trying to understand their hormonal health. Tools like ovulation predictor kits, basal body temperature charts, and cervical mucus monitoring are all methods people use to track this crucial event. In assisted reproductive technologies like IVF, ovulation is so central that it is carefully monitored and even medically triggered to align the egg release with planned fertilization procedures. Doctors use medications to mimic the body's natural hormonal signals, ensuring that ovulation happens at the optimal time. This medical involvement only underscores the importance of ovulation. It is the event that determines whether the rest of the process can proceed toward the possibility of pregnancy. Emotionally, ovulation often goes unspoken. Unlike menstruation, which has physical markers like bleeding, ovulation is largely invisible. It doesn't disrupt daily life for most people. It comes and goes quietly. But within that silence lies immense power. It is the reason the menstrual cycle exists. It is the core around which the entire system rotates. It is the moment the body says, now is the time. Not in words, but in biology. Not with sound, but with action. And yet, how many people truly understand ovulation? How many have been taught about its timing, its signs, its role? For something so essential, it is astonishing how little is known or discussed. In classrooms, in conversations, even in healthcare settings, ovulation is often overshadowed by periods, which, while important, are just one part of a much bigger picture. By understanding ovulation, we begin to understand the body's intelligence in full, its ability to anticipate, to prepare, and to execute a process that holds the potential for new life. So when we speak about why women have periods, we cannot ignore ovulation. It is not a side effect of the cycle. It is the purpose. The rest of the cycle bends around this one moment. The body doesn't bleed just to bleed. It bleeds because ovulation didn't lead to fertilization. And so it starts again. Ovulation is the point of action, the turning point, the moment of possibility. It is the biological gamble, and the body places its bet every month without hesitation, with astonishing consistency, guided by hormones, time, and a wisdom older than science itself. Ovulation is the central event, the silent axis, the heartbeat of the cycle. And whether it results in life or simply another cycle, it is always an act of readiness, the body's monthly invitation to creation. Taboos 4. Periods are the shedding of the uterine lining. The process of menstruation, commonly known as a period, is one of the most misunderstood and underappreciated biological functions in the human body. To the untrained eye, it may seem like a simple act of bleeding, a nuisance to be managed and hidden away. But to those who look closer, who understand the science and the sacred rhythm behind it, menstruation reveals itself as a masterful act of renewal. Every month, the body engages in a quiet, purposeful ritual, the shedding of the uterine lining. It's not random. It's not meaningless. It's a vital reset, the final step in a cycle of preparation and the beginning of another. It is nature's way of saying, we are ready to try again. To understand menstruation, we must go back to what came before it, ovulation, and the weeks of preparation that led to it. The uterus, under the direction of hormones like estrogen and progesterone, builds a soft, nutrient-rich lining called the endometrium. This lining is not just a patch of tissue. It's a living environment, a nest prepared in hope and readiness to receive a fertilized egg. It is the body's way of saying, I'm open to the possibility of life. And when fertilization doesn't occur, when no embryo implants in that lining, the body doesn't hold on. It lets go. It clears the slate. That shedding, that act of release, is what we call a period. The technical term for this process is menstruation. It typically occurs every 21 to 35 days, lasting between 3 to 7 days. During this time, the thickened endometrial lining breaks down and exits the body through the vagina, along with blood and mucus. This is not blood from a wound. It is not the result of injury. It is a purposeful outflow, a release of what is no longer needed, of tissue that served its purpose and is now ready to make way for something new. The uterus, controlled by a drop in progesterone levels after ovulation, initiates this cleansing process with remarkable precision. The body doesn't just shed tissue, it contracts to help it along. The uterus is a muscular organ, and during menstruation, it tightens and relaxes in waves. These are the cramps many people experience. These contractions help push out the lining, much like labor contractions, but on a smaller scale. They can range from mild discomfort to intense pain, and they are often accompanied by fatigue, mood swings, bloating, and other symptoms collectively known as premenstrual syndrome, PMS. These sensations aren't imagined. They are physical, chemical, and deeply real. They are the body's way of doing what it must. Despite its importance, menstruation has long been burdened by stigma. In many cultures, periods are treated as dirty, shameful, or taboo. People who menstruate are told to hide their pads, avoid certain foods, or even isolate themselves during this time. The natural shedding of the uterine lining, a process that enables life, is still whispered about behind closed doors. But why? Why should a biological function that signifies health, vitality, and the body's readiness to create be surrounded by silence and discomfort? It is time to shift the narrative. It is time to see menstruation for what it truly is: strength, renewal, and the body's unfailing wisdom. Because let's be clear, without periods, there is no cycle. And without the cycle, there is no fertility. Menstruation is not a side effect. It is a key player in reproductive health. A regular period means the body is in sync, that the hormonal system is functioning, and that the cycle of ovulation and renewal is intact. When periods become irregular, absent, or painful beyond normal limits, it often signals that something deeper is going on, whether it's a hormonal imbalance, stress, thyroid issues, or conditions like polycystic ovarian syndrome or endometriosis. That's why tracking menstruation isn't just helpful, it's essential for understanding overall health. There is also a psychological and emotional component to menstruation. The act of shedding can mirror our emotional lives, letting go of what no longer serves us, cleansing ourselves of stress, releasing tension, and beginning again. Some individuals feel more introspective or emotionally raw during this time, which is not a weakness, but a reflection of how deeply connected our bodies and minds truly are. In a world that tells us to always be productive, always be cheerful, always be the same, menstruation offers a moment of pause, of realignment, of internal attention. Modern science has begun to recognize this too. Menstrual health is now a field of serious research. From studying period-related disorders, to developing better hygiene products, to designing fitness and nutrition plans around the menstrual cycle, there's growing respect for what this phase of the cycle represents. Some athletes train differently depending on where they are in their cycle. Some professionals advocate for period leave in workplaces. These are small but significant steps in treating menstruation not as a burden, but as a vital aspect of life. Even in the animal kingdom, menstruation is rare. Most mammals reabsorb their uterine lining rather than shedding it. Humans, along with a few other species like primates and some bats, are among the very few that menstruate openly. This makes our cycle even more unique, even more worthy of understanding. The fact that the human body goes through this shedding process, preparing again and again for the chance of life, shows just how resilient and adaptable we are. The uterus doesn't give up. It doesn't stop hoping. Every month is a new opportunity. Every period is a cleansing, a rebirth, a chance to start fresh. So when someone asks what a period really is, tell them it's the body's way of resetting. It's not just blood, it's biology. It's not just tissue, it's preparation. It's not a curse, it's a cycle. And it's not a burden, it's a blueprint for possibility. The shedding of the uterine lining may seem like the end of the cycle, but in truth, it's the beginning. It's the moment the body clears the way for what comes next. With every drop, the body says, let's try again, let's prepare anew, let's keep the door open to life. This is menstruation. Not just a biological necessity, but a powerful declaration of the body's strength, rhythm, and readiness to begin again. Stars 5. Hormones drive the entire cycle. Beneath every phase of the menstrual cycle, from the first drop of blood to the release of an egg and the shedding of the uterine lining, lies a silent but powerful force: hormones. These chemical messengers are the true conductors of the menstrual orchestra, coordinating every shift, every change, and every response in the body with remarkable precision. The menstrual cycle does not operate randomly. It's not guesswork or luck. It is a beautifully timed system, entirely governed by hormones that rise and fall in perfect synchrony to keep the reproductive system functioning. Without these hormones, specifically estrogen and progesterone, there would be no cycle, no ovulation, no periods, and no possibility of life. To understand the menstrual cycle is to understand the role of hormones. These molecules produced by the brain and the ovaries are responsible for every transition throughout the month. They are not just involved in reproduction. They influence everything from mood to energy levels, from appetite to sleep. Their effects ripple throughout the body, shaping how a person feels, thinks, and functions, often without them even realizing it. And yet, despite their central role, hormonal activity remains one of the most overlooked aspects of reproductive health. The cycle begins with the hypothalamus, a small region in the brain responsible for maintaining the body's internal balance. When the cycle starts, usually marked by the first day of menstruation, the hypothalamus releases gonadotropin-releasing hormone, GnRH. This hormone travels to the pituitary gland, another gland located at the base of the brain, which then releases two key hormones: follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH. These two hormones are the messengers that spark the rest of the cycle into motion. FSH travels through the bloodstream to the ovaries, instructing them to begin maturing a group of follicles, each containing an immature egg. As one follicle becomes dominant, it begins producing estrogen, the hormone that drives the first half of the cycle. Estrogen is a powerhouse. It stimulates the thickening of the uterine lining, preparing it for potential implantation. It also influences the cervix, causing it to produce fertile cervical mucus that can help sperm survive and move through the reproductive tract. At the same time, estrogen affects the brain, often increasing energy, focus, and emotional stability during this part of the cycle. As estrogen continues to rise, it eventually reaches a peak, and this signals the pituitary gland to release a surge of LH. This surge is the trigger for ovulation. Within 24 to 36 hours of the LH peak, the mature follicle in the ovary ruptures, releasing the egg into the fallopian tube. This is the body's moment of readiness, the chance for conception. And once ovulation occurs, the hormonal story shifts again. After the egg is released, the empty follicle transforms into the corpus luteum, which begins to produce progesterone. This hormone takes over as the dominant force in the second half of the cycle, known as the luteal phase. Progesterone's role is just as critical as estrogen's. It stabilizes the endometrial lining that estrogen helped build. It makes the uterus a hospitable environment for a fertilized egg to implant and grow. Progesterone also has a calming effect on the brain. It can induce feelings of sleepiness, sensitivity, or emotional vulnerability. For some, it leads to bloating or cravings. These are not signs of imbalance. They are natural effects of a hormone doing its job. If fertilization does not occur, the corpus luteum begins to break down after about 12 to 14 days. As it dies, progesterone levels fall sharply. This drop removes support from the uterine lining, causing it to break down and shed, beginning the process of menstruation. And once again, estrogen and progesterone levels are low, allowing the hypothalamus to restart the cycle with a new pulse of GnRH. The hormonal loop begins again, as it has for thousands of years, in billions of bodies, always adapting, always repeating. These hormonal changes don't just affect the reproductive system, they influence every system in the body. Estrogen, for example, supports bone density, cardiovascular health, and cognitive function. Progesterone plays a role in regulating immune responses and reducing inflammation. The balance between the two hormones also affects skin, hair, digestion, and even how the body metabolizes food. That's why hormonal health is so important. When the balance is off, the entire body feels it. Hormonal imbalances can arise for many reasons. Stress can disrupt the hypothalamic signals. Excessive exercise or poor nutrition can lower estrogen levels. Conditions like PCOS can interfere with ovulation and progesterone production. Thyroid disorders, medications, and even sleep deprivation can all influence hormonal rhythms. That's why irregular periods, painful periods, or missed ovulation should never be ignored. They're often signs that the hormonal system needs attention and support. Modern medicine now offers many ways to manage hormonal issues, from hormonal birth control, which regulates estrogen and progesterone levels artificially, to hormone replacement therapy, to lifestyle changes like diet and stress management. But understanding the body's natural cycle first is crucial. Every rise and fall of these hormones has a purpose. They are not enemies to be suppressed. They are messengers to be heard and respected. Tracking hormonal changes throughout the cycle has become easier than ever. Apps, wearable devices, basal body temperature monitoring, and hormone test kits allow individuals to get to know their own rhythm. Some people discover they feel most productive and focused during the estrogen-driven follicular phase. Others notice they need more rest and emotional care during the progesterone-heavy luteal phase. Honoring these natural fluctuations isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And yet, many grow up never learning how hormones work. They're told about periods, maybe briefly about ovulation, but not about the powerful chemical symphony happening inside them every day. They're not taught that mood swings might have a biological basis, that energy dips are often tied to hormonal shifts, or that cravings aren't about willpower. They're about chemistry. This lack of education fuels shame, confusion, and misdiagnosis. So when we ask why women have periods, we must also ask, who is conducting the orchestra behind the scenes? The answer is hormones. They don't just regulate bleeding. They guide the entire journey, from menstruation to ovulation to renewal. Estrogen and progesterone are not just reproductive hormones. They are life hormones, affecting the mind, the body, and the spirit. And when in balance, they create a cycle that is not just functional, but beautiful. To understand the menstrual cycle is to appreciate the silent power of hormones, the unsung heroes working every moment to maintain equilibrium. They don't shout, they don't ask for praise, but they are always there, rising and falling, building and releasing, speaking the ancient language of the body. Their message is clear. The cycle is sacred, and hormones are the messengers that make it all possible. 6. Period pain is real, and it has a purpose. When most people think of periods, the first thing that often comes to mind, even before the blood, is the pain. Cramps, a dull, throbbing ache in the lower abdomen, a sharp, stabbing feeling that radiates through the back or down the legs, nausea, headaches, exhaustion. For some, it's just a minor annoyance. For others, it's a crippling wave of discomfort that interrupts their ability to work, focus, or even stand. But no matter how it presents, one truth remains. Period pain is real. It's not exaggerated. It's not made up. It's not just in your head. It's a biological reality. And more than that, it has a purpose. To understand why periods hurt, we have to revisit what's really happening inside the body during menstruation. The uterus, that strong and muscular organ nestled in the pelvis, is undergoing a process of shedding its lining, the endometrium, which it spent the entire previous cycle building in preparation for a potential pregnancy. Now that the body has recognized no embryo has implanted, it has to dismantle the unused lining and clear it out. But it doesn't simply fall away. The uterus must contract to physically push the lining out through the cervix and out of the body via the vagina. These contractions, similar to the ones experienced during labor, though on a smaller scale, are what cause menstrual cramps. The medical term for this pain is dysmenorrhea, and it's incredibly common. Primary dysmenorrhea, which is the pain associated with normal periods and not caused by an underlying condition, affects a significant majority of menstruating individuals, especially during the teenage and early adult years. The uterus releases hormone-like substances called prostaglandins during menstruation. These chemicals trigger the uterine muscles to contract more strongly. The higher the level of prostaglandins, the more intense the contractions, and therefore the more intense the pain. These same chemicals can also contribute to other symptoms like diarrhea, nausea, and fatigue, because they affect smooth muscle tissue throughout the body, not just in the uterus. So yes, the pain is real, and it's not just the uterus doing its job. It's the chemicals released during this process that heighten the sensation and affect other parts of the body as well. In some cases, the pain becomes severe, unmanageable, and even debilitating. For those individuals, it could be a sign of something more, secondary dysmenorrhea, which is menstrual pain caused by an underlying health condition. This could include endometriosis, fibroids, pelvic inflammatory disease, PID, adenomyosis, or other reproductive health issues that need medical attention and should never be ignored. But even when the pain is considered normal, it doesn't mean it's insignificant. For too long, society has treated menstrual pain as something that should simply be tolerated. Girls are told to tough it out. Women are expected to show up at work and perform as usual. Athletes are expected to train through cramps. Students are expected to concentrate during exams. There is little room given for the reality of what their bodies are going through. Can you imagine telling someone in post-surgery recovery or someone with a stomach ulcer to just push through the pain? And yet, millions of people are expected to do just that every single month. This lack of empathy is not only unfair, it's dangerous. It creates a culture of silence where people feel ashamed or weak for talking about their pain. It teaches young individuals to ignore symptoms that might be trying to warn them of something more serious. And it reinforces the false idea that period pain is trivial, when in fact, it's often an incredible act of strength just to function during those days. Pain should never be normalized to the point of being dismissed. It should be respected, understood, and treated. But why does pain exist in the first place? Why would the body create such discomfort in a process that's natural and necessary? The answer lies in biology's design. Pain is a protective mechanism. It tells us that something is happening in the body that requires attention. In the case of menstruation, the pain caused by uterine contractions serves a purpose. It helps ensure that the lining is shed effectively and completely. Without those contractions, the uterus might not fully expel the old tissue, leading to clotting, irregular cycles, or other complications. So the pain, uncomfortable as it is actually part of the body's attempt to clean house properly. And while it may not offer comfort in the moment, this pain is part of something much larger, the renewal process. Each cramp, each wave of discomfort is a signal that the body is working. It is resetting. It is preparing for the next cycle, for the next opportunity to create life. It is strength in action. And while no one should have to suffer, understanding the reason behind the pain can help reframe it, not as a punishment or curse, but as a reminder of the body's intelligence and resilience. Thankfully, there are ways to manage menstrual pain. Heat therapy, light exercise, hydration, and dietary changes can all help. Over-the-counter medications like ibuprofen or naproxen are effective in blocking prostaglandins. For those with more severe or chronic pain, hormonal birth control may be prescribed to regulate or suppress menstruation altogether. Alternative therapies like acupuncture, yoga, or herbal remedies also offer relief for many. The key is recognizing the pain, not ignoring it, listening to the body instead of fighting it. Culturally, it's time to change the way we talk about period pain. It's time to stop treating it as a joke or a weakness. It's time to stop telling young people to suffer in silence. Schools, workplaces, and families need to create spaces where this pain can be discussed without shame, where sick days can be taken without judgment, where care, not dismissal, is the response to discomfort. Because at the end of the day, period pain is not just a physical sensation. It is a window into the body's inner world, a message from the uterus, a sign that the cycle is continuing, that the process is underway, and that the body is functioning as it was designed to. And when we recognize that pain, when we understand it, manage it, and honor it, we also honor the people who endure it, not once or twice, but hundreds of times in a lifetime. So when someone says they're hurting because of their period, believe them, support them, empathize with them, because that pain is not weakness. It's not drama. It's not exaggeration. It's biology. It's part of a sacred, repeating rhythm that allows life to be possible. And in every cramp, in every ache, in every tear shed during those days, there is power, there is strength, there is resilience, and there is a body doing exactly what it was built to do. Star 7. Menstruation is a sign of health, not just fertility. In a world where periods are often reduced to whispers, pad wrappers are crinkled discreetly in bathroom stalls, and pain is brushed off as normal, we sometimes forget a powerful truth. Menstruation is not just about reproduction, it is a vital sign of health. Like the beat of a heart or the rhythm of breathing, a regular menstrual cycle is a clear signal that the body is in balance. It's not just about the ability to have children. It's about the body functioning well, the hormones communicating properly, and the internal systems staying in sync. When periods come on time, flow normally, and follow a regular rhythm, they are the body's way of saying, I'm healthy. The menstrual cycle is often viewed only through the lens of fertility, as if its only purpose is to support pregnancy. While reproduction is certainly a primary function of the cycle, it's far from the only one. The hormonal changes that guide menstruation also influence bone density, brain chemistry, skin health, metabolism, sleep, and immunity. When these hormones are balanced, many systems in the body operate more smoothly. When they're off, when periods become irregular, disappear, or arrive with unbearable symptoms, it often means something deeper is out of alignment. In this way, menstruation becomes a barometer of overall well-being. Doctors have long used menstruation as a diagnostic tool. One of the first questions a physician might ask during a health assessment is, when was your last period? Because from that one question, they can gather a wealth of information. A missed period could point to stress, thyroid dysfunction, weight fluctuations, or polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. Excessive bleeding might signal fibroids or a bleeding disorder. Irregular cycles may suggest hormone imbalances, early menopause, or even underlying chronic illness. And that's why tracking menstruation, just like monitoring blood pressure or cholesterol, is a crucial part of understanding your health. This is especially important for adolescents, the first few years after menstruation begins. a milestone called menarche, are critical. During this time, the body is still adjusting to its new hormonal rhythm. Cycles may be irregular at first, but over time, they should settle into a consistent pattern. If they don't, it's not something to be dismissed as just growing up. It may indicate that the brain-ovary communication isn't working properly, or that underlying conditions are present. Early intervention can make a world of difference, not just for reproductive health, but for long-term wellness. In athletes, menstruation is a powerful tool to monitor the effects of training. Many elite sportswomen track their cycles to understand how their energy, strength, and focus vary across the month. When a female athlete's period disappears, a condition known as amenorrhea, it can be a red flag for the female athlete triad, a combination of low energy availability, menstrual dysfunction, and low bone mineral density. In such cases, the absence of a period is not a sign of strength. It's a warning that the body is under stress and not getting the nourishment it needs to support basic functions. Beyond the physical, menstruation also reflects emotional and mental health. Chronic stress can disrupt hormone production and delay or stop ovulation, leading to late or missed periods. Eating disorders, anxiety, depression, and trauma can all manifest in the body through changes in the menstrual cycle. This is not a coincidence. The brain and the reproductive system are deeply connected. When mental health suffers, so can hormonal balance. Conversely, when the cycle is regular and symptoms are manageable, it often reflects that things are moving in harmony both physically and mentally. Even in perimenopause, the years leading up to menopause, menstruation plays an important role in signaling how the body is changing. Irregular or heavier periods may mark the beginning of hormonal shifts that signal the end of reproductive years. Understanding this transition helps prepare emotionally and medically for the changes to come. Again, the menstrual cycle speaks, and the body is always trying to communicate through it. Unfortunately, too many people go through life disconnected from this monthly rhythm. They're not taught how to track it. They're not told what to look for. Instead, they're handed a pack of pads and a warning about pregnancy. But menstruation is not just something to be managed. It's something to be understood. When we listen to the body and its cycles, we gain the power to act early, to support healing, to prevent illness, and to make more informed decisions about health and lifestyle. Technology has opened new doors for this kind of understanding. Cycle tracking apps, smart wearables, basal body temperature thermometers, and at-home hormone test kits allow people to monitor their cycles with detail and accuracy. These tools empower individuals to notice patterns, to predict when they'll feel energized or tired, calm or anxious, bloated or strong. It's not about being controlled by your cycle. It's about collaborating with it, working with the rhythm instead of against it. Menstruation is also culturally significant. Across centuries and civilizations, periods were seen as sacred, as a sign of connection to nature and the moon, as a source of creative and spiritual power. In some traditions, the menstrual cycle was aligned with lunar phases, fertility rituals, and community wisdom. While many of these customs have faded, the core truth remains. Menstruation is not a burden. It is a vital sign of life and energy. And yet, in modern society, periods are still wrapped in silence. People are embarrassed to speak about them. Young girls are taught to be discreet rather than curious. Workplaces rarely accommodate menstrual health. Medical systems often dismiss concerns with, "It's just your hormones." But the more we talk about menstruation not as a problem, but as a health indicator, the more we see it as a normal, necessary rhythm of life, the closer we get to true body literacy and healthcare equality. So when someone asks, why do women have periods? One answer should be, because the body is working. Because the systems are in motion. Because the hormonal communication between brain and ovaries and uterus is functioning exactly as nature intended. Because the cycle is more than just a sign of fertility. It is a mirror reflecting overall health, strength, and balance. A regular period is not just about the ability to have a baby. It's a sign that the bones are strong, that the heart is healthy, that the metabolism is in rhythm, that the brain is receiving signals, that the immune system is cooperating, that the body is whole. And when the period disappears or becomes irregular, it's not just about fertility. It's a warning that something deeper needs care. Menstruation is not just biology, it is a conversation between systems, a report card from the body, a monthly check-in that, if we learn to listen, can help us live healthier, more informed, more empowered lives. It is not just about creating life. It is about sustaining life. And that alone is reason enough to understand, respect, and celebrate it. 8. Periods end with menopause, but the cycle's wisdom continues. Every cycle has a beginning, and every cycle has an end. For menstruation, that end is called menopause, a natural and powerful transition that marks the close of the reproductive years. But make no mistake, while menstruation may stop, the body's wisdom continues. Menopause is not a loss, it's an evolution. The rhythms may quiet, the bleeding may cease, but the strength, intelligence, and insight that the menstrual cycle has cultivated over decades don't vanish. They deepen, they mature, and they guide the next phase of life with grace. Menopause typically occurs between the ages of 45 and 55, with the average age around 51. It's defined as the moment when a person has gone 12 consecutive months without a period, signaling that ovulation has permanently ceased and that estrogen and progesterone, the two key reproductive hormones, have declined to low and steady levels. But the journey to menopause, known as perimenopause, often begins years earlier. During this time, cycles may become irregular, shorter, longer, heavier, or lighter, as the ovaries begin to slow down their hormone production. These changes can bring a wave of physical and emotional symptoms: hot flashes, night sweats, sleep disturbances, mood swings, vaginal dryness, weight shifts, brain fog. Not every person experiences them the same way, and not every person experiences them all. But for many, these shifts are unmistakable. The body is changing, not breaking, not failing, but transitioning. And in that transition lies a powerful story of renewal. For years, menstruation has been the body's way of saying, I am fertile, I am preparing, I am ready. Month after month, it builds and releases, offering possibility even when pregnancy is not the goal. But eventually, the body understands that it is time to retire from that cycle, not out of defeat, but out of completion. The job is done. The wisdom has been gathered, and now the body shifts focus. This doesn't mean the hormones disappear entirely. Estrogen and progesterone don't vanish. They simply settle at new, lower levels. The dramatic rises and falls that once defined the monthly rhythm soften into a steady state. This can feel liberating to many. No more pads, tampons, cramps, or PMS. No more tracking ovulation or managing the emotional roller coaster of the cycle. Instead, a new kind of consistency emerges, a new kind of calm. But menopause is not just physical. It's deeply emotional and symbolic. For many, it's a time of reflection, a time to assess what the body has endured, created, lost, and loved. It marks the end of reproductive potential. Yes, but also the beginning of a new identity, one that is no longer measured by fertility, but by freedom, confidence, and clarity. In many cultures, older women are revered as wise, as grounded, as strong. They are the keepers of stories, the teachers, the leaders. And it's no coincidence that this respect often arrives after menopause, when the cycles have ended and the focus turns inward. The ending of periods also allows space to heal. For some, menstruation was a time of pain, shame, or struggle. Irregular cycles, endometriosis, fibroids, PCOS, these challenges may have caused distress for years. Menopause can bring relief, a soft landing, a chance to breathe, and for others, it's a time of grief, a goodbye to a body that once carried the potential for life, a farewell to youth, a letting go of what was. Both responses are valid. Both are real. Because menopause is not a single moment. It is a passage, and passages deserve to be honored. It's important, too, to understand the health aspects of menopause. The drop in estrogen can increase the risk of osteoporosis, heart disease, and changes in skin elasticity and muscle tone. That's why postmenopausal health requires attention. Bone density scans, heart health screenings, nutrition tailored to support the changing body, movement that strengthens without strain, and sometimes hormone replacement therapy, HRT, may be recommended to ease symptoms and protect long-term health. Menopause is not the end of care. It's the beginning of a new kind of care. There is also emotional care. The transition through perimenopause and menopause can stir identity questions, trigger anxiety, and even cause depression. Mental health support, community, and open conversations are essential. No one should have to walk this journey in silence. Just as we are learning to speak more openly about puberty, periods, and fertility, we must also speak with dignity and courage about menopause. It is not a shameful secret. It is a profound transformation. Menopause is not a reversal of menstruation. It is its final gift. The cycle that began with puberty, that taught patience, resilience, and awareness through every rise and fall, now concludes its rhythm and leaves behind something deeper, a lifetime of understanding. A body that has been through seasons and storms and continues forward, a mind sharpened by experience, a heart steady in its beat. The end of bleeding is not the end of meaning. So when we speak about why women have periods, we must also speak about how they end and why that ending matters. Menopause is not the collapse of function. It is the conclusion of a chapter. And like any great story, the end brings new depth to what came before. The bleeding may stop, but the body keeps moving. The hormones shift, but the strength remains. And the wisdom, the true wisdom of the cycle, carries on. Because menstruation is more than just blood. It's more than just fertility. It's a dialogue with the body, one that teaches listening, surrender, care, and renewal. And when that dialogue pauses, it does so with reverence. Menopause is not the silence after the song. It is the resonance, the echo, the part of the melody that stays in the heart long after the music has played. This is how menstruation ends, not with loss, but with legacy. Chapter 9. Breaking the silence, the cultural taboo around periods. For all its biological brilliance, for all its crucial role in health, fertility, and life itself, menstruation still carries a heavy burden. Silence, shame, stigma. Around the world, in homes, schools, workplaces, and even medical offices, periods are treated not as normal, essential body functions, but as something to hide, something embarrassing, something to joke about, dismiss, or ignore. The cultural taboo around menstruation is one of the most damaging aspects of human health education. It robs people of understanding their own bodies, isolates them in their pain, and reinforces the dangerous idea that something so vital must remain unspoken. But this silence, this inherited discomfort, must be broken. It starts early. For many, the introduction to menstruation comes not through open conversation or thoughtful guidance, but through whispers, nervous glances, and a packet of sanitary pads handed over with minimal explanation. A girl stains her school uniform and is mocked. A student raises their hand to ask for a pad and is met with embarrassment. A teenager experiences cramps so severe they can barely concentrate, but they're told to get over it. These early experiences shape beliefs, and those beliefs, that menstruation is dirty, shameful, or inconvenient, linger for years, even decades. In many parts of the world, menstruation is more than taboo. It is a source of discrimination. In some cultures, people who are menstruating are told they cannot enter religious spaces, cook food, touch plants, or interact with others. In extreme cases, they are forced into isolation, sent to huts or sheds away from their families until the bleeding stops. These practices aren't rooted in science. They're rooted in centuries-old myths, misinformation, and fear. And while modern societies may not banish menstruating individuals to huts, the silence in our homes and media can be just as alienating. Even in medical spaces where science should lead, the taboo persists. Patients report being dismissed by doctors when they complain about period pain. They're told it's just part of being a woman. Diagnoses for serious conditions like endometriosis or PCOS can take years because doctors fail to take menstrual symptoms seriously. This isn't just frustrating, it's dangerous. Silence can delay treatment, intensify suffering, and diminish the quality of life for millions. But perhaps most damaging of all is the internalized shame. When menstruation is never spoken of in open, respectful terms, people begin to believe that their body is something to apologize for. They feel dirty during their periods. They hide their pain. They fear being seen as weak or unreliable. They silence themselves because the world taught them to. This is not just a cultural issue. It's a public health issue because people who feel ashamed of their bodies don't seek help. They don't learn. They don't advocate for themselves. Nowhere is this silence more visible than in education. Many school curricula barely cover menstruation, and when they do, it's often rushed, clinical, and awkward. Boys are sent out of the room. Girls are given vague warnings about changes and told to carry pads just in case. The cycle is described in diagrams, but not in lived experience. There's no mention of mood swings, of pain, of the emotional toll. There's no encouragement to track, to understand, or to ask questions. And so generation after generation grows up knowing just enough to be afraid, but not enough to be informed. This silence also shows up in our language. Euphemisms like that time of the month, Aunt Flo, the curse, or Shark Week take the place of honest conversation. We joke about period cravings, mock PMS, and roll our eyes at mood swings. But behind every joke is someone who's hurting, someone who doesn't feel safe talking about what their body is going through. Words matter. The way we speak about menstruation shapes how we see it and how others see us. But change is possible. In recent years, movements around the world have begun to challenge the menstrual taboo. Activists are pushing for menstrual equity, the idea that access to menstrual products, education, and support is a basic human right. Countries like Scotland have made menstrual products free in public spaces. Celebrities and influencers are speaking openly about their periods. Health educators are using social media to normalize the conversation. And slowly, the tide is turning. In film, literature, and media, more authentic stories about menstruation are being told. From coming-of-age stories that treat the first period as a rite of passage, to documentaries that expose period poverty in underserved communities, the narrative is expanding. These stories don't sensationalize menstruation. They humanize it. They remind us that every month, billions of people bleed. And that's not gross. It's powerful. Schools are beginning to adopt more inclusive, gender-sensitive menstrual education. Because not all people who menstruate identify as women, and not all women menstruate. Understanding that menstruation intersects with gender identity, disability, culture, and access is key to building a world where no one is left behind, simply because their body works differently. Workplaces, too, are starting to evolve. Some companies now offer period leave or allow flexible work arrangements during menstruation. Others provide menstrual products in restrooms, not hidden, not locked up, but as freely available as toilet paper or soap. These small changes send a big message. We see you. We respect you. You don't have to suffer in silence. But most of all, the silence is broken in everyday moments, in conversations between mothers and daughters, teachers and students, partners and friends. It's broken when someone says, "I'm on my period and I feel awful," and the response isn't a joke, but support. It's broken when someone carries a pad to the bathroom without hiding it up their sleeve. When someone teaches their son about menstruation just as openly as they teach their daughter. When someone says out loud, periods are normal, because they are normal, healthy, strong. And the more we say it, the more the stigma fades. The more we talk, the more we learn. And the more we learn, the more we empower. So yes, periods are biological, they're hormonal, they're physical, but they are also political, cultural, personal. And the way we speak about them shapes how we experience them. When we silence periods, we silence people. But when we break the silence, we unlock a world of truth, trust, and transformation. And that, more than anything, is the beginning of real change. So, why do women have periods? Because within their bodies lies one of the most profound and intricate systems nature has ever designed. A cycle of creation, preparation, renewal, and release. Periods are not just about blood. They are about health, balance, fertility, and strength. They are the result of a complex dance of hormones, the readiness of the uterus, and the body's unwavering commitment to preserve the possibility of life, even when life is not conceived. They are not random, nor are they a weakness. They are purposeful, predictable, powerful. And yet, for generations, this natural process has been covered in silence, hidden under layers of shame, stigma, and misunderstanding. The very cycle that makes life possible has too often been treated as an inconvenience, a taboo, a burden to bear, rather than a rhythm to honor. But this narrative is changing. As science advances, as education expands, as voices rise, we are beginning to see menstruation for what it truly is, a vital sign of health and a symbol of resilience. Every period is a message from the body, saying, "I am working, I am regulating, I am resetting." It is not a curse. It is not something to be embarrassed about. It is not a flaw in design. It is one of the body's greatest achievements, and those who experience it every month through pain, fatigue, or calm are living proof of the body's unwavering strength. So let us teach it. Let us speak it. Let us normalize it. Let us dismantle the myths and lift the silence. Because the more we understand the menstrual cycle, the more we respect it. And the more we respect it, the more we empower those who live it. Periods are not just a part of life. They are a foundation of life. And that truth deserves to be honored out loud, without shame, and with the deep reverence it has always deserved.